Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So today's case, we are going to Australia again. This is my second case in a row from Australia, and the perpetrator from today's case is a woman called Bianca Edmonds. And I don't even have any words for this woman, because Bianca, she was somebody that liked to be in control, and she saw people as objects for her to use and abuse. And she got into a relationship with a man named Michael. They had a child together, but they broke up. And Bianca, she moved on to a different man. She actually got married to a different man. But was Bianca happy with this whole situation? No. No. Because Bianca had a massive vendetta against her ex. So Bianca, being the twisted woman that she wasn't going to carry out her revenge herself. Oh no, she was going to use her new husband to do it for her. And the way she manipulated her new husband, I just have no words. Because Bianca started using sex to brainwash her new husband. She would literally bring her new husband on the verge of climaxing, and she would start shouting at him, "Will you kill for me? Will you kill for me?" It's crazy. Like, she literally was using sex to brainwash her new husband. And she was so manipulative, she was so twisted, and all of her schemes would end up in two people losing their lives. Today's case is an insane series of events. So that is what we are talking about today, so let's jump in. And I just want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, and that is Love and Pies. And if you have never heard me talk about Love and Pies before, which I'm sure you probably have because I've spoken about this game so much, Love and Pies is the cozy game you could play in your life. I love playing Love and Pies on a cold winter's evening, baking all of my delicious goods. But you don't only bake in Love and Pies. Oh no, there is a big mystery a part of the game as well. Because you play as single mom Amelia Green, whose mom's beloved cafe has just burnt down, and you need to uncover the secrets behind this. But not just that, Amelia's mom is also missing. And there is this big mystery to solve. There are twists and turns all over the place. There is also a will they, won't they relationship, high school sweethearts returning. It's packed full of drama, and the storyline that goes along with Love and Pies is incredible. You follow along with the storyline on your phone, and it's just like your own little Netflix drama. And the game is constantly updating. It is always packed full of special events. And I have some exciting news for you, because Love and Pies have just launched another amazing new feature to the game, which are their sticker albums. And this allows you to earn sticker packs whilst playing the game. You open these packs and collect them one by one, and I don't know about any of you guys, but I am a sucker when it comes to collecting things. And in just a couple of weeks' time, Love and Pies will be launching a completely new sticker album collection called Winter Tales. And these sticker packs will feature incredible winter-themed artwork designed by an amazing digital artist named Elijah. There will be nutcrackers, snow queens, lots and lots of elves, and there is always just so much fun going on in the game. It is one of my favorite games to play, and it is just one of those games where you can just check in a few times a day, keep everything going, serve some customers, catch up on the storyline, and it's just a stress-free game. And I know a lot of you guys already play Love and Pies and are absolutely loving it, but if you have never played Love and Pies before, I highly recommend it. And you guys can check out Love and Pies using my link in the description box. And for everyone that downloads the game using my link and plays to day 3, you will receive an amazing free gift via your in-game inbox, which consists of 200 energy and 50 gems. And if you play Love and Pies, you know how important those gems are. And using my link rather than going to the App Store really does help out this channel, because it lets Love and Pies know that you came from this video. So download the game via my link in the description box. It is completely free to download, and then you can start playing ahead of the amazing new sticker album collection launching on the 15th of December. So thank you again to Love and Pies for sponsoring today's video, but thank you to every single one of you watching right now, because truly without all of you guys, I wouldn't get opportunities like this. And now let's jump into today's case. Bianca Edmonds was born on the 22nd of March 1986, making her an Aries, and she grew up in Melbourne, Australia, where she lived with her 3 siblings and her parents. Now, growing up, Bianca's childhood was pretty chaotic. Her dad was very absent. He was basically non-existent, but when he was around, there was just constant arguing and shouting, screaming between Bianca's parents. Her parents did get divorced when Bianca was 6 years old, and Bianca's biological father completely cut off the whole family. Like, Bianca actually didn't see her dad again for a very long time. Her mom then got remarried and Bianca gained 2 older step siblings. But the chaos does not stop there, because another thing that was just very chaotic in Bianca's childhood was the fact that the family moved around constantly. They were just moving from one place to the next all around Melbourne, which meant that Bianca, she was constantly moving to a new school. She had to make new friends everywhere that she went. And this had a massive impact on her mental health. Her grades also started to become affected because she was just never settled. They just constantly moved around. But that was not the only thing that happened in Bianca's childhood. Because when Bianca was no older than just 10 years old, this is when she became the victim of extreme physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her own brother. Now, Bianca's older brother has been described as, quote, a troubled child. He required quite a lot of significant care from Bianca's parents. Her brother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as well as schizophrenia, and he also had developmental problems. And he was a very troubled child, and he apparently had violent sexual tendencies. And because of these violent sexual tendencies, he started abusing his younger sister, Bianca. And it is just so horrific. She is so young. She's still in primary school when this is happening. And it absolutely tore her apart. She was so confused because she knew what was happening to her was wrong, but then she had been brought up to trust her older brother. And she was really confused because why would her older brother hurt her like this? But she became incredibly fearful of her brother. She was just constantly terrified whenever he was around. And this was happening behind closed doors. Nobody knew about it. Bianca never told anybody. However, one day she did break down and she confessed everything to her mom. So this should be the part where I tell you something is done about it and the sexual abuse stops. But what happened when she told her mom? Absolutely nothing. Her mom basically just tried to sweep the whole thing under the rug. She didn't want to know. She completely dismissed Bianca. She actually accused her of making the whole thing up. And Bianca's mom just went back to catering to her brother's every need, as if nothing had happened and all of this was normal. The brother was essentially the golden child. He could do no wrong, and that is clear because he is sexually and physically abusing his sister and nobody cares. Nobody wants to do anything about it. And this left Bianca completely unprotected by even her mom. And I don't know this for sure, but because nothing was done about the physical and sexual abuse, I think it's safe to assume that it possibly did continue. And things go on like this in Bianca's life until she's in high school. Her life is still completely chaotic. The family are still moving around. Bianca ends up attending at least 5 different high schools. So the fact that she's moving around, never feeling settled, the fact that she's still possibly being abused by her older brother, the fact that she has no one to turn to, no one to protect her, her mental health really suffered and she had severe anxiety. But not only that, just to top everything off, she also had a lot of issues with her physical health. She was diagnosed with arthritis from a very young age. She suffered with carpal tunnel, which caused her immense pain. She had to have surgery on both of her feet for a separate issue. It's like she can't catch a break. She is going through so much and pretty much no one cares. She was also later diagnosed with a self-defeating personality due to the sexual abuse that she had suffered as a child. She had massive trust issues, which I think we can all understand because she's had absolutely no one to turn to growing up. And she viewed the world in a kill or be killed kind of way. She saw everyone as her enemy. She always thought that she could never show anyone her weaknesses because they would use it against her. And she started to think that the only reason why she should have people in her life was for her to use them. That is all people were good for. Use them, get what you can out of them, control everything, and then dump them. And those personality traits will become very, very clear throughout the rest of this case. Eventually, Bianca does drop out of high school early. She actually ends up joining the Navy, where she spends a couple of years in the Navy before she is medically discharged. And then at the age of 19, she just bounces from one job to another. She worked for a mining company in retail, as a dental nurse, as a receptionist. She also goes from one relationship to another, just constantly bouncing from one man to the next. She literally did have a new boyfriend every single week. And her life is still very chaotic. She's either changing relationships constantly or changing jobs constantly, and it is very reflective of her upbringing. And it was around this time that a significant thing happens in Bianca's life, because the current man that she is dating is a man named Dirk, and she falls pregnant for the very first time. She does go on to have a child. She has a little boy that she names Tyler, and surprisingly, things are actually pretty settled from this moment on for a few years. So we do skip forward. It is now 2012. Bianca is 26 years old, and she's left her former relationship, the one with Dirk, and she meets a new man by the name of Michael Capiciana. And this is very, very significant. Michael is very significant to the rest of today's case. Now, Michael was 35 years old when he met Bianca, so he is 9 years her senior. And we actually don't know much about Michael's background. I couldn't find anything when I was doing my research. The only thing that I could find is that he was involved in quite a serious car accident. This was when he was younger, and he did receive compensation, which he used to buy his own house. So when Michael and Bianca first met, they hit it off straight away. They started spending loads of time together pretty much instantly, and it wasn't long until Bianca and her son Tyler ended up moving in with Michael. And things move very, very quickly, because within 6 months of dating, Bianca falls pregnant with Michael's child. Michael then proposed to Bianca, and they were due to be married. They started planning the wedding, and then it wasn't long until the relationship turned very toxic. We don't exactly know what happened in the relationship. We don't know why the relationship turned so toxic. Maybe it was just tensions between the two of them because Bianca was pregnant and all of that, and the stress and the change and everything. But we also know that Bianca's a very evil person. So yeah, we just don't know what happened. But it has been said that the relationship, quote, included elements of family violence. And again, we don't know anything more than that. And we don't know who the violence was coming from and who it was directed towards. But what we do know is that the relationship did not last much longer, because the day before their engagement party, which should be a time of celebration, they were supposed to be celebrating with friends and family, they broke up the day before their engagement party. And obviously Bianca is still pregnant, but the two of them just decided that they could no longer be together. Things were just not working, and it was just best that they split up. Bianca moves out, she goes back to living on her own, and Michael moves on. He actually gets himself a new girlfriend by the name of Silvana. And I don't know about any of you, but yes, the relationship was toxic, but the way it ended was pretty mature. They both decided that they couldn't be together, that it was best for everybody that they just broke up. They saw that their relationship was toxic, and it ended. So I just want to put that out there. So we skip forward now to June of 2013. This is when Bianca goes on to give birth to Michael's child, who is another boy that she calls Luca. And this is where the problems start, because now there is a massive custody battle, because Michael applied to the courts for him to have visitations to his own son, but Bianca was having none of it. She was blocking him left, right and center. She wouldn't allow Michael visitation, and we don't know why. And a whole year goes by, and Michael still has no access to his son. And by the time we get to 2015, this is when the next very significant thing happens to Bianca, because she meets a new man, and this man is very, very significant. He plays a major role in the rest of today's case, and this man is a man named Glenn Cassidy. Now, Glenn was 48 years old when he met Bianca. He was actually 19 years her senior, so there is quite a big age gap here. And Glenn had been previously married. He'd actually been married for the last 20 years. He had only recently gotten divorced from his wife at the end of 2014, so a matter of months before he met Bianca. And he also had 3 daughters from his previous marriage. And there is one thing that you should know about Glenn. He was described as someone that was quite vulnerable, very naive, and he was easily manipulated. Not that that is an excuse for what he goes on to do, just want to put it out there, but yes, he is somebody that Bianca would love to target, because as soon as she got into a relationship with Glenn, she did what she always did with people. She saw him as an object. She saw that she could use him to get revenge on her ex. And why does she want revenge on her ex, Michael? Well, it's because he was trying to get visitation to his son. And she didn't want that. She didn't want Michael to see his son. She couldn't be bothered with the whole process. It was taking up too much of her time. And she just wanted Michael out of the picture. So she saw that she could use Glenn to get revenge on Michael. So Bianca is now in a relationship with Glenn, and like all of her relationships, the relationship moves very quickly. And pretty much from the get-go, she started talking to Glenn about how evil Michael was. She was already planting the seeds. She kept saying to Glenn that Michael was an unfit father, that he was a violent man, that he was going to have a bad influence on her son's life. And Bianca was also saying all of this to everyone in her life, all of her friends, all of her family. Whenever she got the chance to run Michael's name down, she did. But this is also when Bianca started making up a ton of lies about Michael. She started to say that Michael was going to kidnap her son Luca, leave Australia and go on the run, and she would never see her son again. Now, I don't know why she thought that. She had zero evidence that Michael was going to do that. It did seem like she was just making it up for dramatic effect, to get people to feel sorry for her and to manipulate people. You can't always trust everything that Bianca says. So when she was saying all of this to Glenn, that she was saying that Michael was going to kidnap her son Luca, that he would leave Australia, that she would never see her son again. As we know, Glenn is very naive, very gullible. He was lapping all of this up. There was not one question in his mind. He did not question Bianca at all. He never once stopped to think, this all seems a bit far-fetched. Is this true? None of that. He was just like, oh my God, Michael sounds like an evil person. Straight away, Glenn was on board of needing to stop Michael right away. And she just kept getting more and more outlandish with her stories that she was saying to Glenn. She was now saying that Michael was a genuine threat to Bianca and Glenn's life. She started saying that Michael was planning on killing both of them. Again, she had no evidence of this. She pretty much didn't have any contact with Michael at all. So I really don't know how Glenn believed all of this. But she was saying that Michael would break into their home in the middle of the night and murder them in their sleep. And I don't even know if Glenn had ever met Michael in person at this point. But he just never questioned anything. He always believed Bianca, which is just crazy to me, especially because he's only just met Bianca. He's only known her for a matter of months, and he is trusting every single word that she is saying. It's insane. I just don't know. I understand that he's gullible and naive, but seriously, how does anybody believe this? So we now get to August of 2015, which is only 6 months after Bianca and Glenn met. And what happens next? Well, Michael is finally granted visitation to his son, Luca. And as you can imagine, Bianca was outraged. This was the last thing that she wanted. She was horrified that all of her efforts to block him from having visitation had failed. She hated that Michael was now going to see his son 2 years after he was born, which is crazy. She kept him away from his son for 2 years. So Michael was granted supervised visits every other week for 2 hours. Bianca and Michael would have to meet at a neutral location so Michael could then see his son Luca. And Michael was kind of happy with this arrangement. I mean, at least he would finally get to see his son. But Bianca was not happy. No. Again, at every opportunity that she had to run Michael's name down, she would. She would say to all of her friends, family, Glenn, that Michael was evil, he was violent, he didn't deserve visitation, that he was a waste of space. She also moaned about how far away Michael lived. Because Michael lived approximately 4 hours away from Bianca, and because they had to meet at a neutral location that was kind of in the middle, Bianca would have to travel 2, sometimes 2.5 hours to this neutral location, and she was not happy about that. It was interfering with her lifestyle. And these visits every other week only went on for a few short months before Bianca had had enough. She was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. That's it. I'm not taking my son to see Michael anymore. I need to do something. And this is now where this case takes a sickening, deadly turn. So after the few short months of these visitations, Bianca started telling everybody that she wished that Michael was dead. And obviously people thought that this was just tongue-in-cheek. Bianca was just having a moan about her ex. She didn't actually mean it. I mean, people say things about their exes all the time that they don't mean. But behind closed doors, Bianca was saying to Glenn that she really did want Michael dead. Now, we don't know Glenn's reaction to this, but we know that he laps up everything that Bianca is saying, so Who knows? Maybe at first he did think that she was joking. Or maybe he took her seriously from the get-go. But Bianca kept saying to Glenn over and over again that Michael was a threat, that Michael was going to take her son away from her. And this is when Bianca told Glenn that he needed to be a man and step up and do something about it. And now Bianca was getting really angry at Glenn. She was now verbally abusing Glenn. She would scream and shout at him. She would say to him that if he was a real man, he would take care of it. If he cared about her, he would take care of it. If he loved her, he should do something about it. She called him spineless, weak. She would say that he had no balls. And this was all because Bianca was trying to convince Glenn to murder Michael for her. That's what she wanted. That is what she wanted Glenn to be a man about. If he cared about her so much, he should just go and murder Michael to protect Bianca. And things go on like this for weeks. Bianca verbally abusing Glenn, basically bullying him into murdering Michael. But Glenn, he wasn't having any of it. He kept refusing. So Bianca now turns to different manipulation tactics. First of all, she told Glenn that she wanted to get married. So the pair got engaged and they started planning their wedding for the following year. Bianca then said that she wanted to have a child with Glenn, even though I don't know if she did. Like, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I think it was just manipulation, but Bianca made out to Glenn that she wanted a child with him. So Bianca and Glenn, they start having a lot of sex, probably to try and conceive. But the real reason that Bianca and Glenn were having so much sex is because Bianca was actually using sex to brainwash Glenn. Yeah. It is insane what she actually does. She was trying to brainwash Glenn into murdering Michael during their sexual activity. Because every single time Bianca had sex, just as Glenn was on the verge of climaxing, Bianca would whisper in his ear, "Will you kill Michael for me?" And Bianca did this every single time. It was like she was trying to associate Glenn's pleasure with murdering Michael. And after doing this tactic for a while, Bianca took it one step further, because she then started to refuse to let Glenn orgasm until he verbally agreed to murder Michael. Have you ever heard of something so messed up? It's insane. Like, literally, as Glenn was about to climax, Bianca would stop, not let him climax, shout at him, "Will you murder Michael for me? Will you murder Michael for me?" And she would only carry on and let him climax if he said, yes, I'll do it. So that is now what was happening. Every time they had sex, Bianca would stop as Glenn was about to orgasm. She would say, "Will you murder Michael for me?" And Glenn always said yes, because he wanted to orgasm. But he was being brainwashed. It's just crazy. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no. There is more sexual activity and more brainwashing that goes with it. Because Bianca now starts bringing a gun into the bedroom when they have sex. She would hold the gun. She would climb on top of Glenn. She would, quote, ride him whilst having the gun in her hand. Bianca then started saying, quote, "You're the effing man here. Now, it has to be now. If you don't man up and go to his house and shoot him dead, then you're a pussy and you don't love me and I will leave you." Bianca would then tie Glenn up and she would, quote, play all sorts of kinky sex games whilst holding the gun. And apparently this started to turn Glenn on. And again, Glenn is associating guns and violence and murder with his pleasure. And things progress from there. Bianca then asked Glenn to tie her up and she asked Glenn to hold the gun and she wanted Glenn to, quote, rough her up and have sex with her whilst pointing the gun at her. And she would say, "Tell me how much you want to kill him. Will you do it? I won't let you come until you say yes." And Bianca would also say that it turned her on so much when Glenn had sex with her whilst he was holding a gun. So Glenn started getting off on this. He started to revel in the fact that she was getting so much pleasure from him holding the gun. And it was just all so messed up, all of this. Bianca is trying her hardest to sexually brainwash Glenn. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it was working. Glenn was now actively getting aroused every single time Bianca talked about murdering Michael. He would actually want to have sex when the topic of Michael being murdered was brought up. I just can't believe it worked. After Bianca was playing all of these twisted mind games using sex to brainwash Michael, she had finally gotten what she wanted. Because Glenn, for real now, agreed to murder Michael. Which I'm just speechless. I'm flabbergasted. What the actual hell? I can't believe that the murder-fueled sexual brainwashing actually worked. So we now get to December 2015. Glenn and Bianca had been together for about a year at this point. Michael had only had visitation to his son for approximately 4 months. All of this is happening incredibly quickly because this is when Bianca and Glenn make a fully fledged plan on how they were going to murder Michael. And Bianca was obviously the main driving force here. She was the one leading everything, but Glenn was still going along with it. And a big part of the plan is that Glenn had to carry out the murder of Michael completely on his own. Because if Bianca was involved, she would get caught because she is too close to Michael. And if Michael gets murdered, the police are going to look at her first. So she cannot participate in the murder, which makes no sense. It really doesn't. Because if Michael is murdered, yes, they are going to look at his ex, for example, Bianca, especially if there is animosity between the two of them. But then the police will quickly look at Bianca's new partner as also a suspect. So that just doesn't make sense. But Glenn seemed to agree, even though Bianca is literally just trying to cover her own back. She does not care about Glenn whatsoever. But Glenn started making the plan on how he was going to murder Michael alone. Bianca did help with some of the planning though. She is definitely the brains. And together they made a detailed map of Michael's home. Glenn also made a to-do list on the Notes app on his phone of all of the things that he needed to do leading up to the murder and the murder. And you can actually see images of the list online. And as you can see from the list, it's actually pretty difficult to understand because it's full of spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. It's not always clear what Glenn means. He first puts the heading obstacles, to which he writes 1 bullet, getting him alone, body, transport. He then puts another heading, things I want to do before the job. And in this section he writes, financial for Bianca and kids, have baby or at least be pregnant, get married, have as much sex as possible. And I just can't believe that one of the things that he wrote down on his Notes app was have as much sex as possible. In the grand scheme of things, you're writing a list about murder and that is what you write down? Wow. And I should say, as Glenn was making this list, he and Bianca were trying to get pregnant. Apparently, Bianca was receiving IVF treatment. How true that is, we don't know, because Bianca is a liar and she will say whatever she needs to get Glenn on her side. So I don't know if this is true, but I can imagine she was possibly lying to Glenn about getting pregnant, possibly about IVF treatment, just to manipulate him. But again, I don't have any evidence of that, but that makes sense in my mind. So after Glenn has made this list on his Notes app, he starts putting some serious plans in motion about how he was going to murder Michael. And the first thing that he does is he wants to scope out the place. He wants to know everything about Michael's home, the comings and goings, the layout, etc. So Glenn starts to drive to Michael's home on several different occasions. And he basically just sits there outside of the house watching. And bear in mind, Michael lived over 100 miles away. It was approximately a 4-hour round trip, so it's not like it's just down the road. Michael was really committing to this. And whilst Glenn was sat outside Michael's home, scoping out the place and basically being a stalker, he would call Bianca and give her updates. And he would tell Bianca about the job. Because Bianca and Glenn, they always referred to the plan to murder Michael as the job. However, completely unknown to Glenn and Bianca, Glenn had accidentally installed an app that recorded every single phone call. I didn't even know apps like that existed, but Glenn apparently accidentally installed one. So every single phone call that Glenn makes, it gets recorded. So whilst he is sat there outside of Michael's house, scoping out the place, making his little phone calls to Bianca about the job, everything is being recorded. And of course, these phone calls would later be recovered as evidence. But Glenn and Bianca are making all of these incriminating phone calls and they have no idea. And I just love it when that happens. Don't you just love it? And you can actually hear some of the snippets of these phone calls online, which I will play for you now.
Oh, well, just get it done then. That way we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just one night like this.
Hey?
Just go to work, that way it's over and done with and we don't have any more nights like this.
Yeah.
It's getting to everyone, I think.
Yeah, it is. I am completely over this job. I'm over it. It's got to be...
Well, just finish it.
I'm trying.
And then concentrate on the next, you can concentrate.
Yeah.
Finish this job and move on. just let the future be better. We need less stress in our life.
And in the phone calls, both of them are trying to be very inconspicuous. They always referred to the plan to murder Michael as the job, just in case, anyone was listening. It's like they're trying to speak in code, but they're not being very clever about it. They just keep saying the job or work, and they're basically just talking about their assassination plot. But the phone calls actually give a really good insight to the power imbalance between the two of them. You can tell that Bianca is definitely in charge, but she also sounds very cold towards Glenn.
I hope you do. I want to celebrate. I bought you a present.
I want to celebrate too. Friggin' trust me. Yeah. So, cross my fingers and I'll try my hardest. You know that. Yeah. So there's no work obligations down here, and we can shift up. Yeah, trust me.
Just don't get all funny after the job.
No.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself.
No, that won't happen.
I mean, I know it's a pretty mental job that you're doing, but physically and mentally and all that, don't hurt yourself.
No, it's really right.
And something that I couldn't help but notice is that Glenn says, "I love you" so many times to Bianca, but she point blank refuses to say it back.
You know what? I've never, ever loved someone like I love her. When I'm away from you, I hurt. I bet you look beautiful.
Hello.
I bet you look beautiful. See?
Bye.
I love you.
Enjoy your job.
Yeah, I love you.
Concentrate.
I love you.
Concentrate. Don't stuff up. Pay attention.
Yeah, I will. I love you.
I know.
Okay. See you, babe.
It's so awkward and uncomfortable to listen to because she just says, "Okay," or "I know." And there's also one time that Bianca, right there and then on that phone call, tries to convince Glenn to commit the murder right there and then because Glenn asks if he and Bianca can, quote, "have sex tomorrow night." To which Bianca responds, "I don't know. It depends if we're celebrating or not. Enjoy your job." Basically insinuating that Glenn will get sex if he murders Michael, and if he doesn't murder Michael, well, then they're not celebrating. So sex is off the table.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
And can we have sex tomorrow night?
I don't know. It depends if we're celebrating or not.
Oh.
But nothing happens on that particular occasion. Glenn doesn't murder Michael, so I assume he probably didn't get sex when he got home. And in February of 2016, in the middle of all of this planning, Glenn and Bianca get married. Yeah, in the middle of all of this, they actually do officially get married. But also around this time, Bianca apparently fell pregnant. And I say apparently because, again, there is actually no evidence that she did fall pregnant and it wasn't just another manipulation tactic of Glenn, but who knows, maybe she was pregnant. But what we do know is that she made Glenn believe that she was pregnant. But then she lost the baby, which again, I hate to say that anyone is lying about a miscarriage, but it just seems very convenient because then she blamed the loss of the baby on all of the stress with Michael, and she just needed Michael gone. And of course, she said this to Glenn, and Glenn got really angry because Michael is now the reason as to why Bianca has had a miscarriage, which is why I think it possibly was a lie. And this is actually what seemed to push Glenn over the edge. He was furious at Michael. Not only was Michael a danger to Bianca, to Glenn himself, Michael was also a danger to Luca, the child in all of this, because Michael was apparently going to kidnap him, leave Australia for good. But now Michael was to blame for Bianca having a miscarriage. And Glenn couldn't cope anymore. And just a couple of weeks after they got married, in March of 2016, Bianca decided that it was time to act, and everything will now end in devastating consequences. However, I will say one thing, and that is things do not end in the way Bianca thought that they would. Because we now get to the 12th of March 2016, and this is sadly the day when Glenn decided to act. And the terrible series of events actually starts earlier on in the day when a message was sent from Glenn Glenn's phone to Bianca's phone. And this message read, Bianca, I love you so much. I'm about to do something that you would consider absolutely effing stupid, but I can't put up with this shit anymore. I can't be a part-time parent to Luca. If I get caught, I want them to know that you had nothing to do with this. This is my choice, my decision. You know nothing about it. Please. I can see the stress of you losing our first baby due to him, and I can never forgive him for that and it. Scared that one day he will try to take my boy from me. Has pushed me over the effing edge. Please know that what I do for you, even though you wouldn't agree. I love you so much. Now, does anyone else find that message suspicious? Because just take a moment to think back to the list that Glenn made on the Notes app on his phone. There were spelling mistakes, grammatical errors. It was really difficult for some of the things to actually understand what he was saying. Yet that message that was apparently sent from Glenn to Bianca, it makes sense. There's no spelling mistakes. Yes, there's a few grammar errors, but doesn't really seem like Glenn's writing, does it? And that is because Glenn wasn't the one that sent that message. No. Bianca was the one that sent that message. She took Glenn's phone, wrote out that message, and sent it to herself. She was trying to provide herself the perfect alibi, because if Glenn got caught, that message would mean that Bianca was in the clear because she knew nothing about the murder plot. She was trying to pin the whole thing on Glenn, and Glenn alone. And we don't actually know if Glenn knew about this message. Did he agree to it? Was he there with her when she wrote it? But shortly after this message was sent to Bianca's phone, Glenn left home and he travelled all the way to Michael's home and he arrived there in the afternoon. But when he got there, Michael wasn't home. So Glenn waited around for a few hours. He actually brought some snacks and supplies with him just in case he did have to wait around for quite a while. And something that just really freaks me out, he brought with him his dinner. It was a chicken schnitzel dinner. But what freaks me out about that is that it was on a plate. His dinner was on a plate just next to him on the passenger side. Now that freaks me out. Who the hell does that? If you are going to take your lunch or dinner with you wherever you go, you put it in a sandwich box, you put it in something. Who the hell drives 100 miles with their dinner on a plate in the car? Regardless, the dinner doesn't exactly look appetizing, does it? No, there's peas. There's peas on this plate. That is not a food that you travel with on a plate. It's not like it was a sandwich or something that was easy to travel with on a plate. Peas. No. I don't know why I'm so freaked out about that. Is anybody else? I feel like I'm speechless of that alone. I have never seen that before. Okay. But anyway, I need to move past that. It was around 7 p.m. when Glenn was carrying out his surveillance. This is when Michael and his girlfriend, Silvana, returned home. And Glenn is watching them return, watching them go into the house. Michael and Silvana then settle down for the evening. They go into the living room, they put the TV on, and Glenn is watching them through the window. And then after they had settled, Glenn gets out of his car and he starts just pacing back and forth in front of the house. It kind of seems like he was working himself up, egging himself on, getting ready to carry out the job. But guess what? Silvana, Michael's girlfriend, saw Glenn do this. She saw Glenn and she recognized Glenn. Now, I assume she recognizes Glenn from maybe the visitation that Michael has. Maybe they have come across Glenn before. So Silvana turns to Michael and says, Glenn is outside. And Michael is like, what the hell are you talking about? Michael didn't believe her, and by the time Michael looked outside of the window, Glenn had disappeared. But Silvana is so freaked out. She just has this gut feeling that Glenn is going to do something stupid. However, moments later, they heard strange noises coming from outside of the house. Michael looks outside again, and he saw Glenn walking up to his house, carrying a white bag. And now Michael is freaked out himself. Why was Glenn at his house? He had no reason to have any contact with Glenn, so this was really, really strange. But Michael as well, in his gut, he knew that something wasn't right. So he went to the kitchen and he armed himself with a knife. He then hears banging on the front door. Michael goes to the front door preparing for a confrontation, but he hides the knife from view. He opens the door and he asks Glenn what does he want. The two men start having a conversation. Silvana can hear the two men talking from the next room, but she can't hear what they're saying. Glenn is actually pretending to be all nice to Michael, saying that he just wants to talk. He holds his hand out to Michael. He offers to shake Michael's hand. Michael actually starts to calm down. He thinks, okay, Glenn just wants to talk. So he opens the door further to shake Glenn's hand. But as he was doing so, out of nowhere, Glenn charges through the front door and right past Michael. And now a struggle ensues between the two men. They are fighting with one another, and Michael is desperately trying to get Glenn out of his home. However, this is when Glenn reaches into his white bag that he was carrying, pulls out a gun, and he points it at Michael's head. And Michael was absolutely stunned. He was prepared for a fist fight or some sort of confrontation, but he wasn't prepared for this. Why did Glenn have a gun? But he had armed himself with a knife. He pulls the knife from behind his back and he launches at Glenn. And now it's a massive brawl between the two men. Michael actually stabs Glenn multiple times in the torso. He is desperately trying to defend himself and also his girlfriend Silvana, but sadly Michael couldn't fight Glenn off. Despite being stabbed multiple times, Glenn found the strength to raise his gun. He pointed the gun at Michael's head once again and he pulled the trigger. And tragically, after one gunshot wound to the head, this is the moment when Michael Capiciana lost his life. But things are not over yet. Glenn was absolutely furious that Michael had stabbed him. So Glenn now turns his attention to Silvana because he thinks that Michael and Silvana had planned this attack on Glenn, that they had planned to stab Glenn multiple times, possibly kill him as well. So Glenn started chasing Silvana through the house. But Glenn couldn't catch her. Silvana managed to make her way back to the front door. She ran outside and she started screaming for help. But just as she made it outside, Glenn caught up with her. He raised his gun, pointed it at her head, and he pulled the trigger. Now, luckily for Silvana, the gun jammed, so Glenn was unable to shoot her. However, things are still not over because Glenn now launches himself on Silvana and he starts physically assaulting her. He threw her against the front door, he grabbed her hair, he threw her to the ground, and he started repeatedly smashing her head against the concrete floor. Silvana was struggling to stay with it. Glenn was literally on the verge of killing her, but suddenly, out of nowhere, Glenn collapses to the floor. Because remember, Michael had stabbed Glenn multiple times in the torso. That whole time, Glenn was losing so much blood, but he didn't realize it because he was running on adrenaline. But right now, his injuries had finally caught up to him, and Glenn was just now bleeding out on the steps next to Silvana. And just a few moments later, this is when Glenn also lost his life. And Silvana, her injuries were so severe, but she had survived. Glenn hadn't managed to kill her, thank God. Michael's efforts to fight Glenn off actually saved his girlfriend's life. However, Michael had tragically lost his life in all of this in such a senseless way. It was so horrific, and it was all because of Bianca. All of her evil scheming had now left two people dead. Michael and Glenn were now both dead. They'd ended up both murdering each other, and that is not what Bianca had expected whatsoever. And after this horrific attack, Silvana immediately called the police. They came rushing to the scene. Silvana was taken to hospital. She was actually hospitalized for 4 days. Her injuries were life-threatening, but thankfully she did recover. But unbelievably, when she left the hospital, she was immediately arrested on suspicion of murdering both men. It's crazy. Why would Silvana murder both men? Like, it's stupid. Thankfully, the police came to their senses pretty quickly and realised that Silvana couldn't possibly have done this. And they eventually realised that the only link between these two men was Bianca. So they bring Bianca in for an interview. And you can also see footage of this interview online.
Did you ever say in front of Glenn that you wish Michael was dead? And
no, I've never wished anyone dead.
Really?
I wish people would just F off, and we were going to hopefully go to Darwin and just try and, you know, live normal.
So you've never indicated to Glenn that you wish Michael was dead?
I doubt it.
Well,
because I'm not a psycho. Maybe he got pushed to his limits. Everything with his girls and his ex and Michael and...
And it is so, so frustrating because Bianca lies through her teeth throughout that whole interview. She puts on her crocodile tears. She puts on a fake, complete innocent act. She shows the police the message that Glenn had sent her in the morning, which obviously we all know that she sent to herself.
my question, did you type that text message?
I did not type that message.
So you deny that you sent that text message from Glenn's phone? Okay.
I did not type it.
Okay. I'm just asking you that you can either agree with it or disagree with it.
I did not type it. I did not type
Okay.
it.
That's all I'm asking you. And you can respond how you choose, or not at all.
And I know you spelled Luca's name wrong.
Yes. So you deny sending that text message?
Yes.
You say that you've never purchased a firearm?
I've never bought a firearm.
Okay. You've never shown anybody a firearm in the lead up to this?
No.
Okay. Have you ever asked anyone to kill Michael for you?
No.
Okay. You sure about that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just absurd.
Well, again, it's just a question for you.
sick.
It's a question for you. You can either accept it or reject it. It's as simple as that. That's all this process is about.
But it makes my blood boil. The police bought it. The police bought everything. They bought her act. They believed that Glenn had sent that message himself. And they believed that Bianca had nothing to do with it. So they let her go. And they closed the case. Because in the police's eyes, Michael had murdered Glenn and Glenn had murdered Michael, and they were both dead. So there was nothing else for them to do. So Bianca has gotten away with her schemes. And months go by, and Bianca is right now in the clear. She has now moved on with her life. She's actually dating a new man, of course, just another man that she can manipulate and use. And she's in a relationship with a man named Todd, who is actually a convicted violent criminal himself. He had spent the previous 8 years in prison for cutting his ex-wife's throat and also stabbing her stepsister in front of her 6-year-old son. So yeah, Todd is a great guy. So Todd and Bianca are now in this very messy relationship themselves. And unbelievably, I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but Bianca falls pregnant. For real, this time, just months after the horrific murder of Michael that she had planned. And just to rub salt into the wound, Bianca applies to the court for compensation from Michael's estate. And the courts give her $300,000 of Michael's money. It's crazy, and she was the mastermind behind his murder. And another year goes by. Bianca goes on to give birth to her 3rd child, which is just insane that this woman is just out living her life and she's not behind bars. However, her relationship with Todd becomes very toxic. No shocker there. So initially, Bianca had lied to Todd about how Glenn had died. She had said that Glenn had cancer and that is how he had died. But things were incredibly messy between Bianca and Todd, and there was a dispute about whether Todd was the actual father of Bianca's 3rd child, which, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't. But anyway, because things are getting so heated between the two of them, after doing some research, Todd actually finds out the truth about Glenn and how he died, and the fact that he didn't die from cancer. He actually died because he murdered Bianca's ex, and Bianca's ex murdered him. So Todd confronted Bianca about all of this, and apparently Bianca gave a full confession to Todd about everything, about how she had helped with Michael's murder and that she was the mastermind behind the whole thing. And then, unrelated to all of this, the police start looking into Bianca again. They reopened the case, and I don't know why. Maybe some new evidence came forward, but they reopened the case, so they were also looking into Bianca. So they actually interrogate Bianca once again.
Did you help Glenn plan to go to Melbourne and kill Michael?
No.
Are you sure?
I do not plan to kill anyone.
They seize her laptop and they start digging, and they find so much digital evidence. And this is when they found all of the text messages. They also found all of the recordings of their phone calls discussing the job. And it was now clear that Bianca was involved in the murder of Michael, that she had almost been the mastermind. And over a full year after the murders, this is when Bianca was finally arrested and charged with murder. Thank God. However, because of delay after delay, it actually took Bianca 5 years to go to trial. And she was held in custody whilst awaiting trial. And her trial began in June of 2022, which is crazy because this murder was carried out in 2016. It took so long, it's ridiculous. And this is when all of the incriminating evidence finally came out. All of the detailed planning by Bianca was revealed. All of the manipulation of Glenn was revealed. This whole vendetta that she had against Michael, which even still, I'm not completely clear what her problem was with Michael. Like, what was it about Michael? Because she had a previous child with a previous man, but she didn't have a vendetta, at least that we know of, against him. Like, what was it about Michael? Bianca's ex-boyfriend Todd also testified because she had given a full confession to him. And then there was also a lot of DNA evidence as well. Bianca's fingerprints were all over the hand-drawn map of Michael's home. Her fingerprints were also found all over the gun that Glenn had used. And unsurprisingly, Bianca was found guilty by the jury. And she was sentenced to 26 years in prison. And I just have no words for this case. I really don't. It was so messy. And it was just so unnecessary. There was no reason why Bianca had this vendetta against Michael. All he wanted was access to his son. That's all he wanted. But for Bianca, that was just too much. And for Glenn, he was just stupid enough to follow along with Bianca and everything that she said. And we obviously know about his personality that he's more naive, that he is easily manipulated, but that's just not an excuse. He murdered Michael. And I really cannot believe that the whole sex brainwashing actually worked. It's ridiculous. But Glenn also paid with his life. And it was all down to one woman, which was Bianca. And I am very glad that she's behind bars. But she has ruined so many lives. My heart goes out to Michael's family. Unfortunately, we don't really know much about Michael's background or anything about him, so I can't share any details with you. But I just really hope that Michael's family are doing well. And I just hope that Silvana is doing okay as well, because what she went through was absolutely horrific. She was also nearly murdered, but then her boyfriend was murdered in front of her eyes. I also hope that Luca is doing okay. I can't even imagine what he must be going through. The fact that his mom is behind bars, but she is responsible for the murder of his dad. And I also hope that Bianca's 2 other children are doing okay as well. Bianca has just ruined so many lives and she is where she belongs. So that is the end of today's insane, crazy, messy case. As always, let me know your thoughts, theories and opinions, and don't forget to leave me your case suggestions in the comments down below because I always want to know what you want to hear next. Thank you again to Love and Pies for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye.